I am 110 years old. When I say that out loud, it sounds like a lie, even to me. My hands shake when I hold a cup. My voice is slow now, but my mind still walks through rooms I built long ago. People ask me what I learned in all these years. They expect something clever, something about money, about success. I always smile because the truth is quiet. Money never stayed important. It mattered, of course it did, but it never stayed. When I was young, money felt like oxygen. I grew up watching my father count coins at the kitchen table, his shoulders always tight, his eyes tired. I thought if I had enough money, I would never feel that fear. So I chased it, not running, walking fast. Every day, for decades, I took jobs I didn't love. I stayed late when I should have gone home. I missed dinners. I missed laughter. I told myself it was temporary. It's for later, I said. I'm building something. Later always moved further away. I remember the first time I made real money. I was 32. I held my paycheck in my hands longer than I should have. The paper felt thick. Important. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from joy, from planning. What to buy, what to save, what it would mean about me. For a while, money made me feel taller, safer, respected, but it didn't make mornings quieter. It didn't slow my heart at night. Years passed, money came, money went, sometimes quickly, sometimes painfully. I lost a lot once. An investment I trusted, a man I believed. It disappeared in months. I remember sitting alone in my car, hands on the wheel, not driving. The sun was setting, orange light on the windshield. I wasn't thinking about the money itself. I was thinking about the years I traded for it. That was the first crack. Not enough to change me, just enough to let doubt in. I kept going. I told myself that struggle was noble, that stress meant progress, that tired meant important. I missed my daughter's school play. She stood on stage looking into the crowd, not finding me. I saw the photo later. She never complained. That was worse. Money paid for her education, her home, her comfort, but it did not sit next to her that night. I noticed something strange as I grew older. The moments I remembered most had no price. A quiet walk with my wife after dinner, laughing at nothing, the sound of rain on a cheap roof, holding my grandson's hand as he fell asleep. None of those moments needed money to exist. Money helped sometimes, but it was never the reason. When my wife got sick, money suddenly felt very small. Doctors spoke kindly, bills arrived politely. I would have given everything I owned for one more ordinary day with her, one boring day, one silent breakfast. Money could not negotiate. After she passed, the house felt too large, too expensive, too empty. I sold things. Not because I needed to, because I didn't want them. Objects had become echoes, reminders of who I thought I needed to be. At 90, people stopped asking me what I did for a living. They asked how I felt. That question mattered more. I felt regret, not for working, but for believing money would someday say, "You're done now, you can rest." It never says that. You have to decide it yourself. I look back now, near the end, and I see money like a guest, useful, sometimes necessary, but never family. Family is who sits with you when you are weak, when you have nothing to offer, when your name no longer opens doors. Money never stayed important, because life kept asking deeper questions. Time is a strange thing when you live this long. When you are young, time feels wide, like a field with no fence. You walk without looking down. I did that too. I believed time was something I could always earn back, like money, like strength. I told myself I would slow down later, be present later, listen better later. Later became a habit. I remember a morning when I was 47, nothing special about it, just coffee cooling on the table, my wife humming in the kitchen, the radio speaking softly. I was already late, always late. She started telling me something small, a story about a neighbor. I nodded without looking up. Halfway through her sentence, I interrupted her, not with anger, with impatience. "I don't have time," I said. She went quiet. That silence lasted less than a minute, but it stayed with me for decades. I don't remember where I was rushing to that day. I don't remember what meeting mattered so much. But I remember her face, the way she turned back to the sink, the way the humming stopped. That's how time really steals from you, not loudly, not all at once. It takes small moments you think you can spare. Years later, when she was gone, I would sit at that same table, same chair, same window, all the time in the world, and no one left to rush past. People think regret comes from big mistakes. It doesn't. It comes from everyday choices repeated quietly. I worked hard. I provided well. That is true. But I confused providing with presence. I thought love was proven through sacrifice. Long hours. Heavy responsibility. I didn't realize love also needs attention. Stillness. Shared air. When my children grew older, they stopped waiting for me. They learned my rhythm. Short conversations, half listening. Always one foot elsewhere. They didn't resent me. That hurts more to admit. They adjusted. Time teaches you this cruel lesson. People don't beg forever. They adapt. Then they move on. At 60, I finally slowed down. Not by choice. My body decided. The phone rang less. The praise faded. The urgency disappeared, and I was left alone with my thoughts for the first time. That's when I understood something painful. I hadn't been busy because life demanded it. I was busy because it made me feel needed. Stillness scared me. Silence exposed me. In silence, you hear what you avoided. I started taking walks with no destination, just steps, breath, memory. I noticed old men sitting on benches, quiet, watching nothing. I used to pity them. Now I understood them. They were not waiting for something to happen. They were remembering what already did. Time doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't explain. It just keeps moving. And one day, you realize it took more than it gave. Money never helped me here. Not once. It couldn't slow a year. Couldn't bring back a morning. Couldn't finish a sentence I interrupted. If I could speak to my younger self, I wouldn't tell him to quit working. I would tell him to stop rushing love. Love does not live in the future. It lives now, or it leaves. Success is a word that follows you for a long time. People say it with admiration, sometimes with envy, sometimes with hope. I wore it like a coat, not because it kept me warm, because it looked right. When I was younger, success meant being seen, recognized, needed. I liked walking into rooms where people knew my name. I liked being asked for opinions. I liked the feeling that my absence would be noticed. It filled something in me that I didn't know was empty. I told myself success was proof that my sacrifices mattered, that the missed dinners meant something, that the tired eyes were justified. Success became my language, how I explained myself to the world, how I avoided explaining myself to my family. I remember a celebration, dinner after a big deal, a long table, good food, loud laughter. People toasted me, spoke about my discipline, my vision. My wife sat beside me, smiling politely. I reached for her hand under the table. She squeezed back gently, not tightly. I didn't understand that difference then. Success brings applause, but applause ends. At 70, no one introduced me by my achievements anymore. They introduced me by my age. "This is him," they said. "He's been around a long time." All that success reduced to time past. That was when I noticed how quiet my house was. Success had given me stories to tell strangers, but fewer memories to share with the people who mattered. I had photographs of events I barely remembered attending. Awards I couldn't explain anymore. Plaques collecting dust. I started giving things away, not out of generosity, out of relief. Success is heavy when you carry it alone. The strangest part is this. Success did not make me proud. It made me afraid. Afraid of losing it. Afraid of slowing down. Afraid of being ordinary again. That fear kept me running long after I should have stopped. One night, near my 80th year, I woke up and couldn't remember why I was chasing anything anymore. The goals were met. The numbers were enough. but I felt unfinished. Not because I hadn't achieved enough, because I hadn't lived enough. Success never asked me if I was happy, only if I was productive. It praised my output, ignored my absence. Looking back now, success feels like a mirror that only showed one side of me, the public side, the useful side. It never reflected the quiet man who wanted to sit longer at the table, the husband who should have listened more, the father who should have arrived earlier. I don't regret wanting to succeed. I regret letting it define my worth, because when success leaves, and it always does, you need something deeper to stand on. Relationships don't break the way bones do. They wear down. Softly. Quietly. I didn't lose people through fights. I lost them through absence. There were no slammed doors, no final words, just fewer calls, longer gaps, shorter visits. I thought relationships were strong enough to wait. That love could pause. I was wrong. My closest friend and I used to talk every week. We met young, shared secrets, shared hunger. As life grew busy, our conversations became brief, then rare. One day I realized I didn't know what his voice sounded like anymore. He died before we spoke again. I tell you this without drama. That's how it happens. People don't leave because you hurt them. They leave because you stop meeting them. I watched my children become adults without knowing when it happened. They grew in silence. I was there for the milestones, graduations, weddings, but I missed the in-between moments, the small questions, the doubts, the evenings when they needed nothing but presence. Relationships need proof of life, small signals, a call, a pause, a chair pulled closer. I thought providing stability was enough, but stability without warmth feels like distance. When I grew old, people were kind, but they were careful. They visited with respect, not intimacy. I had become someone to honor, not someone to lean on. That is a lonely position. At 95, a nurse asked me who I wanted to see. Anyone. I hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. Love that is not practiced becomes memory. Memory fades. Relationships don't ask for perfection. They ask for attention. I learned this late. Happiness is quieter than people expect. I spent many years thinking it would arrive someday, after the work was done, after the money was enough, after life finally slowed down. It never arrived like that. What I learned very late is that happiness does not come toward you. It sits beside you and waits to be noticed. I remember a Sunday afternoon when I was around 50. Nothing planned, no urgency. My wife sat by the window, reading. Light touched her face gently. The house was still. I felt restless. I told her I needed to go check on something unimportant, something invented. I left that moment behind. Now, at this age, that memory comes back often, not because it was special, but because it was complete. Happiness often looks like boredom to an ambitious mind. We confuse peace with emptiness, silence with lack. So we fill our days. Noise, movement, achievement. We leave happiness sitting alone. The happiest moments of my life were never announced. They didn't come with excitement. They came when nothing else was happening. Warm soup. Familiar laugh, a shared glance that needed no words. When my body weakened and my world shrank, happiness became clearer. Not bigger, clearer. It was a comfortable chair, a window, a memory that didn't hurt. I realized I had walked past happiness many times, looking for something more impressive. Money didn't block happiness. Success didn't either. Impatience did. Always wanting the next thing means missing the thing you're inside of. At 110, happiness is not joy. It's acceptance. Acceptance of who I was, what I missed, what I loved imperfectly. Happiness is forgiving yourself for being human. Fear is not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It whispers. It suggests. It convinces you it is being practical. I lived most of my life listening to it. Fear told me to keep working, to save more, to prepare. It said, "One more year, just in case." Fear wears sensible clothes. It looks responsible. I was afraid of being poor, afraid of being forgotten, afraid of not mattering. So I stayed useful, busy, needed. Fear kept me from resting, from trusting, from letting go. I didn't take certain risks, not because they were wrong, but because they were uncertain. I stayed in places that no longer fit me. I kept relationships polite instead of honest. Fear prefers comfort over truth. When my health began to fade, fear changed its shape. It became quiet nights, long thoughts. I was no longer afraid of failing. I was afraid of dying unfinished. Not unfinished in work, unfinished in love. I thought about all the things I didn't say because I didn't want to be uncomfortable, all the feelings I softened until they disappeared. Fear stole my voice long before it stole my strength. Near the end, fear loses its power. Not because it leaves, but because you see through it. There is nothing left to protect. I wish I had understood earlier that fear is not wisdom. It's a habit. Courage is not loud either. It is quiet agreement with uncertainty. If I had lived with less fear, my life would not have been easier, but it would have been fuller. Aging strips life down, not all at once. Slowly, piece by piece. First, it takes your speed, then your strength, then your pride. I fought it at the beginning, tried to stay who I was. But age doesn't argue. It waits. What surprised me most is not what aging took away. It's what it revealed. When noise fades, truth gets louder. I no longer care how I am seen. I care how I feel when I am alone. I no longer chase respect. I recognize kindness. Aging taught me that most of life is not meant to be impressive. It's meant to be honest. I see my younger self now, rushing, proving, protecting. I don't judge him. He was afraid. He was trying. Age brings compassion for others, for yourself. There is a strange freedom in becoming invisible. No expectations, no performance, just being. At this stage, memories visit often, some warm, some heavy. I let them come. I don't push them away anymore, because resisting the past doesn't change it. Accepting it softens it. When almost everything is gone, what remains becomes very clear. Not money, not titles, not stories you told to impress. What remains is how you made people feel when no one was watching. I think about the times I chose patience. They glow softly. I think about the times I chose urgency instead. They ache. Near the end, life feels small. A room, a bed, a window. But meaning does not shrink with space. It concentrates. I have learned that life is not measured by how much you carry, but by how lightly you learn to hold it. I hold memories now, not possessions, faces, voices, moments that didn't ask for proof. If I could leave you with one quiet truth, it is this. You do not need to earn the right to live. You are already allowed. Don't wait for permission from money, or success, or fear. Sit longer. Listen slower. Say the thing while there is still time, because time is generous at first, then exact. I am not. Afraid now, I have lived. Imperfectly. Honestly. And that is enough.